Hi there. Welcome to Distinctions for Life, where I help you get what you really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. And I brought back the steampunk hat, and we'll turn those on. Could turn these on. Why did I bring back the steampunk hat? Because it was sitting right over there, and it called my name. It said, Ron, put the hat back on. So Ron put the hat back on. Not that there's any reason to. There you go. All right. Welcome to Distinctions for Life, where I help you get what you really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. I'm your host, Ron Davis. This is a special DFL NaNoWriMo live stream. Excuse me. This year, I am doing National Novel Writing Month and sharing what I learned along the way. All of the regular DFL episodes in November are productivity tips for succeeding at NaNoWriMo. These live streams are actually about how my novel is going. For those of you who don't know, I'm writing a brand new novel called The Adventures of Space Girl Red. It is a postmodern take on the pulp pinup sci-fi of the mid-century. And I won this week. So this week was the week that I crossed 50K in NaNoWriMo, which is interesting because these things not a bad ticker. Because of course Nano's not over, and that is that's the big issue, right? This was always a case, and I mentioned it in another episode of NaNoWriMo, of Distinctions for Life, and of these live streams, that just because you hit 50K doesn't mean your novel is finished. And sorry, when I do this, that means I'm trying to look around the corner and see what my count is, because of the way I set my camera up. It's right in front of also what I need to see. And I need to stop looking at myself so much. Anyway, all right. So for NaNoWriMo, I am writing this novel, Adventures of Space Girl Red. And interestingly, 50K isn't that far off. So one big difference between last time and this time is that last time when I hit 50K, I felt like the story was still just getting started. And I felt like I didn't really know where in particular it was going. Whereas with Space Girl, at this point, I feel pretty confident I know where it's actually going, to the extent that I feel like I'm now sort of past the middle and just working my characters to get to the climax of the story. And then I'll have a little epilogue afterwards. As a matter of fact, I pulled out Scrivener the other day, today, one of those two. Okay, the hat itches, so the hat comes off. We'll put the hat, which is pieces falling off of it. There we go. One of the things, I felt like it was taking a while to get. Okay, so since I know I'm just trying to get my characters to the climax, and there's not much after the climax, I know where every scene is. So I've actually put every scene now has documents in Scrivener. So when I sit down to write, all I have to do is like, which one's next, and just start writing, because the story's all there. It's all finished. Now, as I've mentioned before, and as anybody who's written much at all knows, if you once you start writing these scenes, new things come up. And interestingly, I say that a lot, apparently. Here's a writing tip that I learned somewhere along the line, that there is a thing that newer writers do called echoing, and that is where you use the same word often, or use the same word like in the same paragraph. You'll say something like the fact that I say interestingly. That's sort of a habit that you get into, and that happens to me apparently when I talk as well as when I write. But for Space Girl Red, the big difference to me has been that the plot has always been there. I started out with that 5-sentence plot that Pixar uses, and that has been pretty good. I changed one of the points of it, but even then, it wasn't as big a change as I thought it was. I just found a way to use what I had put in a sort of a sidebar in as a secondary point. I did sort of chop off the end in that when this ends, it's going to end without an invasion of Space Girl's planet, which was going to be like a second invasion, and I didn't really see the reason to be a second invasion, so I got rid of it. There's just going to be one war that they're going to stop. So that was good. You know, it was good to get some clarity there and to know exactly where I'm going. So I've written 50K this month. I went in with about a 6,000K. I believe as of today, my word total, which actually should be on the screen here somewhere. Too many screens, Ron. My word total as of stopping writing this morning was 60,563 words. That puts me well over 60K, well, a little over 60K. And that is a good thing, which brings us to sort of my second point, which is now what? So I won NaNoWriMo, and I think now I understand why they call it winning and not finishing, because I won. I got to 50K. I could stop right now and Nano would be done. But the story's not done. The novel's not done. What do I do now? And there are a couple of interesting things that are keeping me writing every day. The weirdest one is sort of one of the gamification things that happens when you do Nano, which is you get a badge if you check in every day for 30 days. If you put a change in word count every day for 30 days. Or maybe just a check in. You don't have to necessarily change the word count, but you do have to put something in. So you'd have to put the same word count in 2 days in a row. I haven't tried it because I've never had a day where I had 2 days where I did a day where I had nothing. But you have to check in every day to get this badge. Well, I'm done with Nano, but there's still days left in the month. There's what, 4 days left in the month. And so I will do some amount of writing for those 4 days in a month. One thing I have decided is that now, before I sort of had a minimum and a target words for Nano. So my minimum was the 1666, that is the standard for Nano. And the target was 2,000. So I wanted to do 2,000 words a day, and I did. I would at minimum do 1666, and I've done that every day until maybe yesterday. I don't remember if I did yesterday. I have to bring my own Nano thing up. You know, what's interesting is you can. There's a link right here that'll show you where you can follow my profile, but I don't think you get to see my graph of how many words. So yesterday I did 1474, so I was a little under yesterday. I did run into this thing. Okay, let's go back to word count, and then I'll explain what I'm gonna do in the future, which will explain to this problem that I have about writing a particular number of words. So since I'm finished, or since I won, but I'm not finished, I am continuing to write every day and check in on Nano because I want to get the 30-day badge. But I also want to continue to write until this story is done. I have found that this is another weird thing. When I tried to decide, if you look back at the prep episode for Nano, I was trying to decide which novel I was going to write, and I did an announcement live stream, as a matter of fact. And I was going to do like a continuation of the one that I had done in 2017, the one I still feel like hadn't really gone anywhere. And now but then I decided to do Space Girl Red because I wanted to kind of start from scratch, even though there's about 600 words, but I want to start the new story from scratch. I didn't want to have any baggage from the old days. So I did that. And one of the thoughts I had about Space Girl was just practice, right? This was a practice novel, which to a lot of people in the world, that sounds like a crazy talk, right? You're going to write 50,000 words just to practice. But if you start thinking of yourself as a writer who is going to write words over the course of your career, yeah, you can throw 50K away and it's not that big a deal. And this story was just going to be fun. It was going to be kind of comedic. I was thinking I might even just give it away, right? I might just put it on something like WhatsApp for free. And then so I could start building sort of an audience of people who liked my stuff. So then I could write the real serious novel that I wanted to write, which was the one I did in 2017. But now that I'm done, almost done with the story. I've done 60,000 words on this story. The characters are all much more fleshed out, and there are many more characters than I expected. For instance, one of the things about Space Girls is they come in a rainbow. So you have red, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. No, you don't have indigo and violet. You should go look up why indigo and violet are in the spectrum. I'll just tell you, they're in the spectrum because I believe it was Isaac Newton put them there so that there would be the same number of colors in the spectrum as there were notes in a staff, which has nothing to do with anything. It was kind of like, well, there need to be 8. So I'm going to put 8, even though there's actually only 7 colors. So I'm going to make up 2 colors that mean purple, and I'll put them on the end of the spectrum. So I'm undoing that where there's purple. So there are 7. That's right, 7. 6. There are 6 instead of 7. So there are 6 colors. And when I started this, red and blue were important. And green was going to come in there sort of as a side character, because all this came from photo shoot stuff, and red was a photo shoot, and then blue was a photo shoot, and then green was an idea from a singer I heard at a singer I heard perform at a science fiction convention, and I thought, she is green, like green in multiple meanings of that word. And so that's those 3 characters I knew were going to be in there. Green being kind of minor, blue being the antagonist, red being the protagonist of the book. Well, now the antagonist of the book, the villain of the book, is somebody completely different. The character who is just causing the problems. Blue did bad things, and they were an accident. And so one of the arcs in the story is the change in relationship that causes between blue, red, and all the others, and the healing of that separation there, which is a much deeper theme than I expected to have in my little pulp sci-fi girl novel. But hey, that's the way the thing is going. But I now have every single member of the rainbow. So I have seen and have characters from that entire rainbow in the story, which is interesting. It's one of those interesting twists. And now I kind of really like the Space Girl books. See, I'm already talking about them in terms of books, and I really like where it has gone. And so I can see myself writing at least one for every character in the rainbow, where they're the central character. And then having Adventure Space Girl red, orange, yellow, blah, blah, blah. At some point, I have this vision in my head of printing having hardback versions of all of those novels and selling them as a box set called a rainbow. And they would have a similar graphic design style of cover in their colors, so that when you stack them all next to each other, you would see those colors of the rainbow. And it would be a very interesting thing. And it would be kind of cool to have an arc there because one of the things about Space Girl is when you make a name for yourself, you become a space woman instead of a space girl. And so you could make the case that each of these is the story of them going from being a space girl to being a space woman. Though I don't think that's not what's going to happen with Red. She's going to have done some kind of amazing things and almost started a war and started a war, stopped a war, replaced an evil dictator, all kinds of crazy crap that I did not know she was going to do when I started this thing. She will be fairly famous, at least on half a dozen worlds in the galaxy. So I could easily say that in the epilogue, she actually becomes Space Woman Red. But for some reason, I'm reluctant to do that. I'm reluctant to do it. First of all, one thing I have learned is that if you decide to name your characters Space Girl Color, you're going to type those 3 words a lot. I am tired of typing Space Girl Red. And I could say red and green, and I do say red and green occasionally. I have very particular rules about other people using just their names. And it's a very sort of intimate thing. Like that's their name when you're expressing caring. So when you're expressing professional stuff or the kind of stuff you do, then you always say Space Girl in front of it. And I just have to type it a lot. And then I also have a set of characters, a race of characters whose names are based on Czechoslovakian because I have a name generator and I just pick Czech. And those are weird to type because it's not that they have letters that we don't have, but they do have our letters with weird or unusual. I guess it's not weird to them; it's weird to me. Characters, little marks over their characters. So like I have one that spells her name. It's kind of like looks like it's spelled Venus, but it's pronounced Vishuas. I think Vishuas. I think that's right. And there's a little mark over the E that I've never seen before. And I just basically cut and paste it, and then I made a keyboard macro that types it for me, so that I don't have to type that. So that I don't have to type that. All right. So what next? That's the big thing, and I have done an episode on it. The one that comes out Sunday, we'll be talking about what do you do when you're done, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys who will watch this later what I'm planning to do. So I plan to continue to write. Trying to hit at least 1666 for the rest of November, which I don't believe will finish the book. And then I'm going to set sort of a target of 1,000 words a day. After that, to write on it until it's done. And I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to do that 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week. That's a possibility. If I do it 5 days a week, then 1 day a week, I am going to do world building. And the reason is, and this goes back to the thing I mentioned earlier, I only wrote 1,400 words yesterday, but I wrote probably 400 or 500 other words in other parts of the document. So in other parts of Scrivener, explaining a particular race and planetary system. This morning I was writing, and I probably wrote 300 or 400 words explaining how space travel works, which you'd figure I'd know by this time, but the plot needed a back door into a solar system, so I had to create one. And when I created one, I also had to explain why it was there. And that meant I had to go into my little note called Space Girl Science in the travel section and write out how portals work in black space. So I was thinking, well, I would be focused on writing 5 days a week, and then 1 day a week I would spend doing this world building stuff. And that's definitely a possibility. The problem, of course, with that is that I don't know what world building I need to do until I start writing. And then I often can't keep writing until I do the world building. So it doesn't end up being easy to separate them out into a separate day. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Maybe just bringing my word count down to 1,000, which is, it's about an hour's worth of writing. If I bring it down to 1,000, then I've got time. If I spend like an hour and a half writing every day, I have a time to write 500 or 600 words of world building. Now, there is one other thing I have wanted to do, but I have never let myself take the time to do, and that is to create a 3D model of the Space Girl flying saucers. And I think I'm going to let myself do that this weekend, maybe even today. Problem, of course, with it is I'll have to go relearn a 3D piece of software, either probably SketchUp or Blender, both of which I have done stuff with before. I would use Fusion 360, but apparently they stopped making it available for free. I really liked it because it was parametric, and I kind of think in terms of that. And then one of the reasons I wanted to do that early on, and I even tried to get what I wanted to do down on paper, but couldn't really make that work, is because I write about them moving through the ship, moving through the saucer. Space Girls never refer to their craft as ships. They always refer to them as saucers. Anyway, moving through those saucers and having compartments in those saucers, and I don't really understand how they fit in this thing and like how big that ends up making them be. You know, there's there's one point where red and green are on the same saucer. They're going somewhere, and it's like, well, where was she going to sleep? Because the saucers are really kind of made for one person. And right now, I have this idea that there's sort of a central deck, and it's circular, which of course a circular deck, it would be like a circular house, and that all the rooms are going to be pie shaped, and that's weird in and of itself. And then these domes, so like a saucer, a flying saucer is like two plates on top of each other, right? And these parts, the bottom and the top of those plates are curved. If you build it where they touch each other here, and that means every room comes down to this point on the outside, and where previously the outside of the room in the saucer was the biggest part, suddenly it's the widest part, but it's also the shortest part, and that's a whole different problem. So my idea was that their flying saucers actually have a flat ring around the middle with the dome, the curves on the top and the bottom. And that central piece is the living quarters, if you will. And it is about 2 meters tall, right? So it's like, you can start thinking of the saucers being 3 stories, with the central one being the one that is where all the living quarters is and most of the storage. And then the bottom curved parts and the top curved part are either engines or rarely used kind of storage stuff. And then there's the cockpit that sits on the top. It's like a little bubble canopy that sits on the top. And it turns out, as I learned at one point, that there is an airlock on the bottom that's opposite the canopy on the top. So if those are both like little flat places on the thing, then there's sort of a central core that goes all the way through from the canopy. There's a ladder that goes down into the center of the ship, and then it continues to go down into an airlock, and then the two flying saucers can dock on that lock. And that actually happens in one of the scenes, and I didn't know that was going to happen until I got there. So anyway, that would be a kind of thing where I have to take a lot of time that could be spent writing, and instead spend that time doing 3D modeling, which, you know, is that really something I should be doing? But I've really been wanting to do it. I've really been wanting to do it. So I think that will probably happen very, very soon. So anyway, that is some of the things I've been thinking. Oh, I did have a couple of quotes written down here. One was that I also stopped journaling in the middle of this. So on the 12th, I stopped writing in my journal because it took me 20 minutes to write my journal doing morning pages. There's another video on my channel about doing morning pages for journaling. And it took 20 minutes. I'm like, I could be writing. So I just stopped doing any journaling until I won. And once I won, I went back and wrote again. And I was writing about some of the stuff I've been talking about here. And I have a couple of quotes from that. One, I wrote Space Girl Red as a throwaway practice novel for the league. Now it means a lot to me, and I don't just want to give it away, which is kind of funny. But I told myself, hold on loosely, Ron, and think long term. So if I give Space Girl Red away on something like WhatsApp, then I'm doing it because I want to build a following, and it will give me it will be part of the beginning of a career, and not just some novel I wrote because I wanted to write a novel. So anyway, I already told you about the rainbow of novels, and that is really all I wanted to say today on what's been going on. This will be the last live stream in November. I'm probably going to do 2 of them in December, one of which will be a review of goals. If you are doing any goal setting now for 2021, here at the end of the year, you might want to go back to my goal setting series here on Distinctions for Life, which is a playlist all its own on the channel. So go look for that particular playlist. Give you some goal setting stuff. Well, I did a lot of that in the end of 2019, right before 2020 began. and I wrote out my goals. And I think I'm going to do a live stream where I go over them, talking about which ones I accomplished and which ones I didn't. But that probably won't happen until later in the month. But there'll be that one, and then there may be another one. I don't know what the other one will be about. We'll have to figure that out. But I will do something like that. And there will be, as always, Distinctions for Life videos, distinction videos every Sunday at 5 p.m. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, give this video a thumbs up. This channel is all about helping you get what you really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. Until next time, I'm Ron Davis.